This was going viral on my side of TikTok. This woman went to a cafe and it says, POV, you got kicked out of a coffee shop after 3 hours. And it just sparked this whole discourse over working from cafes, using them as third spaces. Let's watch her TikToks and then we'll go over it, okay?
I got kicked out of Habibti's and I'm gonna tell you why. I really happened to stumble upon this place and I just thought the ambiance was beautiful and it looked really nice inside, so I decided to give it a shot. I spent $25 on the cinnamon roll and this latte with rose cold foam on top. Ooh. And I was surprised at how much I actually liked it. I got the cinnamon roll because it looked good, but when I tried it, it did have like seasoning or spice on it and I wasn't really liking it. I came there to do work anyway, so I got right to it. This place had a lot of traffic. It was new faces every 15 minutes. After being there for almost 3 hours, one of the workers came up to me and said, you can't have your laptops out on weekends. I thought it was weird, so I got my thick self up and packed all my belongings. So no, I didn't really get kicked out, but it defeated the purpose of me even being there, and at that point, I was ready to go.
Okay, so let's just process the information we learned so far. So, Q Cafe got $25 worth of things, was there for 3 hours. I would say that's a pretty good, that's like, I try to say a coffee an hour at a cafe. I think that more than covers that. So check. I don't know what other requirements there would be. A no laptop policy. I've never seen that at a cafe, but apparently that's the new thing. I've never seen it, but apparently that's a thing that's happening. Okay. And then she did try to sensationalize it. You got kicked out. Okay, so then that's going to trigger people because people are going to say, oh, you got kicked out, but you didn't get kicked out. But she said in this TikTok, she knows she didn't get kicked out. Okay. So then she made a part 2. Let's watch that.
Reading the comments on my last video, it's clear to me that some of you are missing the point.
Oops, let's go back to the original video. Oh, she turned off comments? No. Okay. Hold on. Let's read comments just really fast so we get an idea. Girl, what? That's an insane policy for real. College students have an entire campus to study on. Try going to the library, the student union, any common area campus. Here's a crazy idea. How about go home and study? The whole trying to be seen thing is old. The whole entitlement attitude is ridiculous. 100% clicks and views. So sad. First of all, I don't know. I haven't been in a library in a while, but last time I checked, you can't eat in them. And you usually don't have refreshments. So maybe I'm stupid, but are your libraries serving you food? I went to libraries all in my 20s and you were never allowed to eat in them. So when I see people even bring out food in a library, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I was always taught never to eat around books, never to drink around books because you could destroy the material, right? So kind of confused. Also, in my life as a millennial, working at a coffee shop was really normal. Working, studying, staying there for 8 hours a day, completely normal, right? Okay, how long you in New York for? I guess she's visiting, okay. I would have asked for a refund. I'm not sure why. She def snitched this girl here. Let's see. No one clocked that I called myself thick. Does that mean it's not true? Hilarious. Okay, now let's go to this one.
And you just weren't listening. It's insane how unheard of it is to some people that coffee shops are places that people like to study or do work. People commenting that they don't want to go to coffee shops and be consumed by people like me working on my laptop doesn't even make sense. Quite honestly, everyone does not have the privilege to unplug, and we all cannot afford co-working spaces. And I think $25 for an iced coffee that was this big, not even, and a nasty Danish is expensive. So my point, and a lot of other people's point, is that one, the laptop policy should have been.
She did get it like saying a nasty Danish because she didn't like the spice. It for me is a little like they probably have a cultural spice on it. And I know as like an Assyrian person, our spices and pastries aren't for everybody, but they're really special to me. So I think that hurt my feelings a little bit. Because she did reference like she didn't like the spice of it, which like to me feels like she's making fun of their food now. So I'm not the biggest fan of that, like, you know what I mean? Like that felt hurtful, but okay.
Clearly stated. 2, you shouldn't have waited. And 3, I have no problem with the policy. Had I known, I would have spent my money somewhere else.
I believe her.
And sat there for 3 hours, however long I felt like, and got my work done. So do you get it now or no?
Okay, I mean, I believe her. I believe like, you know, she feels like the sign wasn't clear and everything. But then this guy, you probably know this guy. He's not my favorite, but I don't dislike him. I just don't really watch him like that. He made a video on her. Let's see here.
Veepties, and this place had a lot of traffic. It was new faces every
If you don't know his shtick, he goes after influencers for feeling entitled. Okay.
15 minutes. After being there for almost 3 hours, one of the workers came up to me and said, "You can't have your laptops out on weekends." It defeated the purpose of me even being there, and at that point, I was ready to go.
So this is a small business with maybe 15 seats, and despite being at full capacity, they let her sit there for 30% of their operating hours before asking her to leave so they could turn the table over. And what
Habiti is, you said Habiti is Arabic, so definitely same as Habibi. Well, Habiti is for girls and Habibi is for boys. Just, so it's called Habiti, which is cute. Like that's cute. Okay.
does she do? She tags the cafe, throws the staff under the bus, and proceeds to call their food nasty and overpriced.
Yeah.
$25 for an iced coffee that was this big. And a nasty Danish is expensive.
She goes on to defend her actions by saying that she was just looking for a place to work. Newsflash, buddy, why don't you try the New York Public Library instead of a small business trying to survive?
See, okay. This part I'm confused about. Why would I go to the library, which is cool, instead of a small business? Are we supposed to be supporting small businesses? Right? Chad said I don't like his attitude. It's the shtick. He does it. He talks like this. Every video he makes, it's the same tone. You know what I'm saying? Like, isn't the whole point to support a small business? And to, like, when I was a nanny, I always made an effort to support small business. Even in Croatia, we go to like local coffee shops. Right? So I'm a little confused on that idea of like, why don't you go to, okay.
Off razor thin profit margins. Anyways, go support Café Habibti. They are a Muslim woman-owned cafe in Soho, and I will be stopping by in the next few weeks.
I would like to know from their perspective why they have this policy, and if there's a way to, in the future, make space for people who come to work at the cafe. Now, I do believe in cafe protocol, like manners, so we'll get into that in a second. But I want to share his review here. So he went, I guess.
Posted about an influencer who
his
claimed she
audio's
was
low.
kicked out of a New York City cafe.
Well, she said she was, okay, first of all, don't say that, because the meme was she was kicked out. The lie, the sensationalism is she was kicked out, but she knows she wasn't kicked out. I'm a little frustrated with everybody in this, where yes, she shouldn't have branded it as kicked out, but also she did correct herself at the end, said, I know I wasn't kicked out. She's obviously doing it for views, but also she didn't get kicked out for views. It just happened to her. But this is why we have to be very careful about how we post our stories. But also it really happened to her. Something really happened to her that I think is interesting. That they asked her to leave instead of spend more money or something like that, you know, or something, right? But like, okay.
And charged $25 for coffee and what she called a nasty pastry. And since that video, she has doubled down on her claims. So I thought that I would visit the cafe myself to do some fact checking. So come with me to Soho. So her first complaint is that the cafe supposedly has no warning about a laptop policy. Well, lo and behold, this...
Girl, you're going to need a bigger sign, girl. What are the chances you see this? What is this? Can I have a zoomed out thing? Laptop policy, Monday through Friday. We ask that you put screens away after 1 p.m. No screens, please. Why? Also, why do you have that policy? And you got to make a bigger sign.
Sign which sits 6 inches away from where you pay.
Girl, nobody's reading a sign. Come on. It is very unlikely that most people would bother to read the sign.
And even then, this tiny cafe let her occupy this gigantic table for 3 hours.
Okay, I think that is interesting. Like, they should have single seating maybe, because yeah, maybe other people can stay with her, like communal. Because if she is taking up 4 seats or 3 seats, yes, we can have that conversation.
And as for that $25 order, here's their menu, where the most expensive combination gets you to maybe $15.
She did show receipts, and it did say 24 something change. So she did spend $25. I don't know if that was including tip maybe, which is, I assume it was.
Anyways, I got this coconut shaken espresso and gigantic buttery flaky chocolate croissant for like $12, and they were absolutely delicious. I showed up completely unannounced with a hat on and was met with some of the nicest service I've ever experienced in a New York City cafe. And it makes me sick that someone tried to do this to honest, hardworking people. So go support Café Habibti and have a good week.
Okay, so okay. Okay. Let's see. Chat says she's entitled. I'm sorry. If this is a new location and people want to try it, she's taking the space. Okay, here's this perspective.
Bitches are not going to, you capitalist ass bitches are not going to convince me and my homegirls that one black girl studying in a cafe for hours was weird. Y'all aren't going to convince me. It's just a cafe. The fuck? Why can't we linger and study in a cafe? It's a like, do y'all not hear yourself? I don't give a fuck if it's a small business. I promise you she was not taking up space and holding up space towards that business was losing out on people. And people often purchase multiple things, if not something, when they're studying. Like, y'all are weird. Y'all are so fucking weird. And people can't do anything and just enjoy themselves. Like, y'all, ugh.
Okay, honestly, I have never been to a cafe with a laptop policy, so I don't know. And I've spent a lot of my life in cafes where there's like 30 people on laptops. So super confusing for me, super confusing for the West Coast, not my lived experience. I have never had this situation happen in my life. I don't know if it's new. I don't know what's going on, but I couldn't even imagine a reality where like you went to a coffee shop where in the West Coast, that is literally the point of going to a coffee shop, hanging out with friends, playing board games, having a snack, hanging out with your kids. I mean, I would go to coffee shops and I would crochet for hours in Seattle. I would literally go to the cafe and order. And like I said, I would order something every hour that I stayed. Okay. Now I understand. And this is something that I will say, that the vibe is important. If you come to the cafe and make it look like your living room, it's a no-go, right? I understand not everybody's privileged enough, and sometimes we have to go to a cafe because we can't go home or we don't have a home to go to. As long as you look like a customer and you don't look like you're making camp, I think it's fine. I think the issue is that maybe some people don't want it to look like you're loitering, but in that case, as a community, we can make that happen. We can make the vibe happen where it doesn't look like we're loitering, right? Okay, because I understand that. I do. You take up a whole space. People feel like they can't sit with you. They feel like you're using it as your living room. You don't want to do that. You don't want to use the cafe like it's your living room, but you want to go to a different location, which is very normal. Here's just a reminder of how normal it is.
% remotely. As someone who works 100% remotely, my New Year's resolution this year is to check out a new coffee shop every week. I've had a list of Chicago coffee shops I want to try, so this will actually challenge me to explore them. I'll also share my thoughts on the ambiance, coffee and food quality, as well as the seating and outlet availability. I've realized that part of the reason I love traveling so much is having new experiences, so this will give me that same feeling right in my backyard. So where should
I will say, because Chat said she could have complained to her friend, I would say you have to be very responsible with how you make content. And I would say that she was irresponsible with how she made the content, because y'all got to stop venting to the internet. We're not your journal. You have to think about how you're impacting small businesses, especially one that's, you know, Palestinian and run by women. And we all have to understand that it's a community effort. But I do think that the laptop policy is weird. And I do think if that's going to be your policy, you should remind the room constantly. You should remind people, okay? Because I think that's important. Like, hey, why do you have a laptop policy? Right? Is it like religious reasons or maybe cultural reasons? Maybe you're trying to make it so people socialize more, or are they trying to move people out? Are they trying to literally make a space? Like, what was the reason? I would like to know. Okay, here we go.
About working remotely is having the option to work from cute little coffee shops. And today I went to Perk Coffee. It was so cold and rainy today in Atlanta, and this was such a cute and cozy spot to get some work done and sip some good coffee. I had their vanilla lavender latte, and y'all, I don't play about my coffee, but I will say that this was actually pretty good. I also had their cream cheese and salmon toast, which is really good, and this was just the perfect spot to get some work done and be super productive. So I will definitely be back again.
Okay, right? Just a reminder, it is really normal to go to a cafe to work.
The library. I'm trying different. I need to get out of my house for work from home
She's
today,
going to
so
library.
we're gonna go to the library. I'm trying different remote working spots around Huntsville, and I have been wanting to go work at the library for so long. I scoped it out yesterday, and it is so nice in there, so we are gonna go. I also made a fresh coffee because I really don't want to spend money on coffee every time I want to get out of my house to work.
Nice.
And I'm gonna take you with me.
Which that is a part of the conversation as well, is getting out of the house. Do you always have to go where you spend money? Not necessarily. Okay, love it. Okay, cute, right? But then this girl starts eating. Can you eat at the library? Like, she's just munching away. Is she making crumbs? Is she cleaning up after her crumbs? That's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't a place to eat necessarily. So you better be, if you're making those librarians clean up after you, I'm going to be pissed. Okay, you better not be making a mess. But maybe she's in a section of the library that's allowed to eat. So that's okay too. You know? It looks like they have food there, so maybe that is allowed. Okay. Okay, cute. She's really struggling with this package, bro. Okay, see, she's wiping off crumbs. I'm very sensitive to crumbs in places that aren't supposed to have food because it's super rude for the people who work there. So she's going like this, which means she is flicking crumbs everywhere. So I'm like, okay, girl, like at a cafe, you expect it. So you got people sweeping, but at a library, often it can be carpeted. It can be like very inconvenient for the workers. It can be, you know, so I just like, I'm very like sensitive. I think it's like a relationship we're having with each other. We all have to make it a safe space for each other, right? But okay, see, libraries, cafes, da 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 da. Okay, look at this. Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
A whole home office ecosystem to the coffee shop. At this point in the city, trying to find a coffee shop to do work in feels like I'm going to war. The other day, I walked around to 5 different coffee shops before I could find a seat. You always see one of these guys. You brought a laptop stand, a keyboard, a mouse. You have to set up anything more than just opening your laptop at a coffee shop. I think you're bringing too much. Hot take. At this point, stay home. Once I went to a coffee shop and a guy had a whole desktop, like an actual desktop computer, was set up at the coffee shop at a communal table. What are we doing here? Why are you bringing 15 different products to the coffee shop? You go in and somebody has like the setup that guy had in the photo, with like the laptop stand.
But you know what? You know how many guys I know who used to game at cafes because that was just the norm? Yeah, you can game at a cafe. Like, that's so normal. Or if like you're a neurodivergent kiddo and your mom drops you off as a teenager to be like, here, sit at the cafe while I go to work. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't think it's that weird.
And the keyboard and everything. Then they have a full headset and like a microphone.
I mean, what might be weird is that you're yelling at the cafe or you're interrupting people or you're ruining the vibe. Like, okay, this video here. Can we please stop normalizing taking calls from coffee shops?
Yep, worst case scenario. Can we also
Okay, I talked about this on the members video. I personally do think there is actually, somebody was saying there's like science to this apparently, but like taking a phone call in a small space is crazy because you tend to yell, you tend to be louder versus people sitting next to you. It is actually severely different. I was on the bus in Croatia and people are taking phone calls and I'm like, get off the phone. You're so loud. I don't need to hear this. You have them on FaceTime. They're on speaker. We don't need to be a part of this. People were playing music videos and I'm like, hello? People were listening. This old man was listening to the full-on radio. I was like, girl, this is a shared space. Break it down. Again, I don't like it. Okay? I don't like it. I was at a doctor's appointment and this old man brings out his phone and literally starts playing like Ray Romano or whatever. Like starts playing like a TV show. And I'm like, and then like mom and dad were there with their 2 kids and they each had 2 kids on 2 phones on speaker. And I was like, hello, what is happening? Like, what is happening? And then I realized like, okay, this is Brittany's not ideal world. And Brittany's ideal world, we are deeply considerate about the people in small spaces with us. Okay? We are not about to fill this little doctor's office, which is the size of this room, with 3 different phones on speakers. Hello? Like, what are we doing here? And so like, okay, there is a lot of conversations to be had about cultural differences. I'm not saying you're the worst person on the planet. I'm just saying like, community is hard. You know what I mean? Like community is hard, right? You know, Chesed is your ideal world, Japan quiet. No, My ideal world is contextual. Maybe I do want to go to a cafe that's blaring like music and very loud and very like, maybe I do want to take public transit one day that has like a vibe where people are dancing on public transit. Maybe I want to take transit that's really quiet. Maybe it's just like, I want options. I want options. I want clear and defined options for the vibe I'm seeking that day. Oh, you want a really quiet cafe? This is the one you want. Oh, you want like a cafe that's like got live music and live performers? This cafe. Oh, you want to play, this is I want it to be, I want choices to fit the vibe of the moment. If we have public transit as an example though, I do think it's more than common courtesy to have earphones in and to be cautious about like how loud you are being or how inconsiderate you're being of other people. Not to mention that like if you're culturally diverse, what if you're playing something on your video that's haram to somebody else or offensive to their religion or offensive to their beliefs? Like, God, do you want fucking Fox News Tucker Carlson blaring on a bus? No. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to listen to that shit on public transit. Turn it off. You know what I mean? Like, you want to listen to some homophobic rant on the bus just because somebody wants to have their phone on speaker? No. Okay. So yeah, like I think we should be considerate of the people who are around us, right? Okay, last video on noisy, taking work meetings,
out in a coffee shop, like remote workers who are on full Zoom meetings in the middle of a crowded public area. I ask because I have a friend who's been studying a lot lately, so she's been going to coffee shops for like a change of scenery, and she said that she's been overhearing all kinds of sensitive work information from people who are just like talking out loud on these work calls. Like today, she said she was sitting next to a therapist. Like if I logged into my therapy meeting and my therapist was sitting in a coffee shop, I'd be like, oh, come on, you're not even listening to me. And the patient the therapist was talking to was sharing all of her concerns about college applications, which like luckily that's not that private, but it could have been a lot worse. My friend said last week she was sitting near this person who was on a call and they sounded like an HR person or something. They were talking about like employee information, and this person in the middle of a coffee shop is spelling employees' names out letter by letter. I was just like, I feel like that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Like that's kind of private. Not only are you potentially exposing information you shouldn't be, but like it's also a little bit inconsiderate. Like obviously conversation and talking is expected in a coffee shop, but like you know how when people have their headphones on and they're noise canceling, they're talking like 3 times louder than they normally would. I mean, I think it definitely depends on like the environment you're in, how loud you're talking, how long you're talking, what kind of things you're discussing. But I know for me, like I wouldn't want to take a meeting in a coffee shop because I know people would be listening in and I would.
Exactly. Like people aren't thinking about being overheard. Or one time the chat says, you guys have quiet carriages in the UK. I took a train once, and I went upstairs to the quiet part and I didn't know it was a quiet part. And I started laughing out loud. And this woman looked at me, she goes, shh. And I was like, oh. And I didn't know what was happening. Like I didn't see the sign. And so I was so confused, and she points to the sign. I was like, oh my, I was so embarrassed. I just didn't know. And I was so mortified. And so I wondered why it was so quiet. Like I couldn't understand what was happening. And I apologized. She was so mad at me. I apologized and I went down to the other section. I was like, I didn't know. And so, sometimes you have those moments, but it's like, okay, I don't mind that existed though. That's cool. Like if I wanted quiet, I would have gone back up there. Okay. So again, I think like instead of saying it always has to be one size fits all or every cafe should work this way, I'm thinking it should be choices and the rules should be clear. Okay. We should have clear rules about the expectation, right? Justice, I have a question about what you said. How do you respond to someone who tells you, why should I filter myself for other people in response to what you say? I agree with you, by the way. I'm not sure what the question's about. Could you expand on that? What is that in reference to? I should filter myself for other people in response to what you say. I agree with you. In public? What do you mean? Like, I'm not going to call my friend and start talking about sex positions when I know kids are in the room. Is that what you mean? Or like when I go to Disneyland, I don't cuss and I don't talk about adult topics without code because kids are there. Is that what you mean? Like, read the room. Like be considerate of people. If we're all adults, you got to get over it to some extent. But like, read the room, right? Like people don't want to hear about they don't want to hear about your whole life. Heck, I was just watching Love is Blind, and they're literally like sexting they're like talking dirty. And I'm like, I don't need to be here for this. Why is Netflix showing this to me? I do not want to hear this happen. Thank you. Stop it. I don't want to overhear this. You know what I mean? It's weird. What are you being weird for? Jet says, let's see. When you were saying we should be considerate of other people in our surroundings. Oh yeah. Like read the room, be considerate, think about where you are, think about what's happening, ask questions, maybe even ask permission, You know, hey, do you guys mind if I take calls here? Should I step outside if I take a work call? Like, try to make the experience a community. It's funny. Like, again, everybody wants a community, but nobody wants to be everyone wants a village, wants to be a villager. Everybody wants to be independent because God knows I don't want to do what the village tells me to do. It's about balance. You know, it is about balance. Okay. Let's see. Discord said taking calls in cafes is the worst for people in the cafe and the people on the other side. Meanwhile, me who almost whisper when I take a call on the bus. And that's the other thing. If you take it's not the action of taking the call, it's how you take the call, right? If you take the call and you're like, and even then the mood shifts on the bus, but at least you're not making it our problem. You know? It's like, it's not even the fact that you took the call, it's how you took the call. Like, okay, I know people who go in the grocery store and they're be on FaceTime on speaker talking to their friends. You are yelling so loud I can hear you 2 aisles over. Because you are yelling because you're on the phone. Now, I remember one time I did one of my work calls with this very well-intentioned autistic person. And I was like, hey, you're on speaker at the store. Like, people can hear our convo. You should probably take it off speaker. And they're like, no, it's fine. People don't mind. And I was like, I mind. I don't need to be on speaker at your grocery store. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is unnecessary. And it's just that attitude. It's that attitude of like, oh, they don't mind. You don't know that. I don't want to be heard. Take me off speaker. Which I don't know if you have this policy with your siblings, but like when they call, I go, hey, you're on speaker. I warn people, you're on speaker, people can hear you. You know what I mean? Okay, a couple more videos.
About the young lady in New York City who made a TikTok about being kicked out of the coffee shop after 3 hours when she was there, you know, working with her laptop open. And while I agree, you know, if that's their policy, there were signs up everywhere, you were there for 3 hours, they said it was time to go, it was time to go. Completely understood that, completely agreed with that for sure. What I do not agree with and what I do not like is the dogpiling on this young lady. And you're doing this because a creator with a much, much, much larger platform than her, in a nutshell, you know, kind of made a video not directly encouraging his supporters and his followers to come attack this lady or dogpile on this lady, but that's what happened. I just feel like at this point, it's no longer about, you know, holding her accountable or trying to teach her or correct her. I feel like it is now just about punishment of some sort, which is crazy. I feel correction without, you know, compassion or empathy turns into social punishment. And what are we doing here?
To be fair, and not to be fair in a good way, that's his whole platform. His whole platform is like punish. He just wants to punish people. He usually says he's doing it for the underdog, like in defense of the small business. But I think it's something to think about. I also think, and this is kind of important, like, it's funny because it gave me a bad taste of everything. Would I go to that cafe because of the way they like, maybe I'd go to the cafe, but maybe I wouldn't feel good staying there. Or maybe I wouldn't feel good making a meetup spot with my friends. Like some meetup spots are spots you hang out with friends. Like you bring like 10 of your friends over. I don't think that this is that kind of spot. It sounds like this is the kind of spot that doesn't want you to bring like 6 or 7 of your friends and be loud and be like, I think it's one of those like chill, like, you know, we're like fancy, you know, like kind of vibes maybe, right? It's not like a board game cafe, which is fine. Read the room, right? I don't mind going to a fancy cafe that expects you to be like quiet, you know, but I also don't mind going to the cafe that is okay with you being loud. It just, again, just tell me the rules. I'll follow the rules. You know what I mean? But I think like nobody wants to feel embarrassed. And guys, I just don't know how it's not going to feel embarrassed for somebody to walk up to you and say like, hey, you need to leave. Because did they give her an option to, you know, what did they, like, how'd that conversation go? Like, hi, you've been here for 3 hours, you need to leave? Or was it more like, hey, like, we don't allow laptops past this time? And it'd be like, oh, why? That's what I want to know. Let me just check right now. Did she get an update? Like, why do they have that policy? Because that is interesting. Like, I would like to know more about that. You know, let's see. Here's the proof. Chad was like, you did not spend that much. And she said 24.20 Cafe Habiti. There it is. Also, not to judge, but girl, your list is crazy. Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. My girl, first, why are we shopping at Starbucks? And second of all, homie, interest charges 5%. Girl, focus, lock in. Anyways, yeah, it looks like she went to $24. So people were like, you didn't spend that money, but there it is. You know, I mean, she probably tipped. You know, she probably tipped. Is there an update though? Like, people working at coffee shops. What's this? She's like saying literally my favorite pastimes. I think she's saying, I don't know. Yeah, she's just going on with her life, which is good. Oh, Black owned in Atlanta.
Come with me to
So this is the latest coffee shop she was at.
Black Coffee on the west side of Atlanta. This place was
Why are you playing fucking Beyonce? You're going to copyright me.
huge with a massive menu. I ordered the Barbara latte and it came up to almost $9. And of course, I left a tip.
Yeah, she left a tip. That was what I was thinking. I was thinking she spent that much at the cafe because she left a tip. So now that makes sense. See how he was slamming her for lying? Why did he assume she was lying about how much she spent? Why did he assume she didn't tip? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the first thing I assumed. I was like, she obviously just tipped, bro.
I sat on the bar top and of course I pulled out my computer and my work right away while they made my latte. It did take a little minute for them to make my latte, but I loved the personalized touch. My drink was really sweet. It had white mocha, brown sugar, and vanilla in it, but I actually enjoyed it. This cafe was small, but it was so beautiful with local artwork.
Oh, see how it has singular seats right here? Very smart. Yeah. See. This is what I'm used to. Look at this guy in a laptop. This is what I'm used to. A bunch of seating where you can pull out your laptop and work. Because, guys, you've got mail. Guys, oh my God, the way I would romanticize having a laptop. Carrie Bradshaw working on her computer at a cafe in New York. Oh, that is the vibe. That's what I'm saying. Like, what millennial didn't grow up romanticizing a coffee shop? This was the vibe. This was the vibe. Even the other day, I said to my partner, I wish I had a laptop. And he's like, why? I was like, the vibe. He's like, what? I was like, there's just a vibe. Oh, beep, 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 beep. I'm so professional. The way you, I love that feeling. I used to have a laptop all my life, and then I haven't had it in a while. Oh, I love it, right? Just as so American, though. I don't know. Here in Croatia, I mean, people read, people smoke, people drink coffee. I don't know if I've explicitly seen a computer, but I will say, like, I assume there will be one near more like college places. But people spend, that's the other thing. In Croatia, we spend all day in the cafe. I have spent 6-7 hours at a cafe with my friends. When they come to visit me, we spend all day there. You know what I mean? As long as you're ordering stuff, you can sit there. They don't care. Even if it gets busy, as long as you're bringing in money, they don't care. You know what I mean? But like, in Croatia, at least so far, I mean, cafes are popping, first of all. Everybody's at the cafe, and everyone's fighting for seats, too. Trust me, there are some cafes I go to here that people are, like, fighting to find a seat, but, like, you can sit there as long as you're chilling. As long as you're there. Like, I have never felt rushed. Actually, the first time I started going to cafes here in Croatia, I got really nervous. I was like, hey, do we have to get up? Do they need the table? My partner's like, no. I mean, these are cafes where literally workers, like some of the places we go to, the workers will literally sit and smoke. Well, will you wait for them? Like, well, they're waiting for you to need something because they got, they're like, we have time. Do you need something? And I'm like, yeah, can you get me another cappuccino? And they'll bring me my cappuccino. And I'm like, vibes. It's like nobody feels rushed. There's no rush, So I don't know. I kind of like it. Last video.
Are you living in where it's not okay for someone to sit down at a cafe? What world are you living in where it's not okay for someone to sit down at a cafe and read a book? What world are you living in where it's not okay for a high schooler to sit down at a coffee shop and do their homework? What world are you living in where someone can't sit down on their laptop and write a blog post in a cafe? People literally sit down in coffee shops and write novels. Like, that's a trope that people...
Hello, that's a trope in movies. The writing my novel at a cafe with a cappuccino and a cigarette.
Been doing for like decades. Where are you guys mentally? Capitalistic brainwash that you think it's strange for someone to sit down and get some work done at a coffee shop. That's normal. You're the freaks.
Now, Are you ready for the twist in my argument? Are you ready for the twist in my argument? Okay, you ready? If you work at a cafe, is it a third space? What is a third space? A third space is a space that isn't work or home. So if you're taking work to your third space, is it a third space? Because here we are all complaining about third spaces. Nobody has a third space, and she's getting out. People are like, she got kicked out of a third space. But a third space means it's not work and it's not home. So maybe the Habiti shop actually had that laptop policy so it could be a real third space. Right? Because if I'm running that cafe and they're like, oh, we have a no laptop policy because we want this to be a real third space for people, well, shit, I'm locked in, bro. That's great. But is that the reason why? Yeah, that's the question. That's the question. Now, my friend and I, we used to romanticize and like dream about owning a cafe. And our version of a successful cafe was going to be a refurbished house. Because in Seattle, a lot of the businesses used to be homes and they would redo them. Or in Croatia, a lot of the homes used to be businesses, which is very funny. Okay. And I used to like the idea of owning a house in Seattle where every room in the house was like a different vibe. So this room was like the gaming room, and this room was like a library, and this room was like a debate space. And then you could like get your food and sit down. In San Diego, I used to go to this cafe called Les Tots, which was very popular, very iconic spot, very huge, beautiful place. If you know, you know. Heard it got shut down during lockdown, which was crazy because it was like there for decades. Very big part of San Diego culture. Anyways, I used to go there. Okay. And you would walk in and it was like a very large space where, guys, I mean, we're talking about hugely large space, right? And you could do anything there. You could work there. You could third space it. You could do anything because it was that big, right? So, you know, when we're having these conversations, the question is, what is the vibe of the owner? What is their hope? And is it clearly communicated to the customers? Because I think that's kind of the relationship that's important, right? Chet says, is it a third space, not home, not a place of work? You don't have to be there, but you choose to be there. So cafe still is a third space, even if you're working on your laptop. I don't know, because it depends on the purpose of the third space, right? I think the third space, hold on, let's see. Third space meaning, let's see if we can find a better definition. Is a social setting separate from home, first place, and work, second place, where people gather informally to build community and share ideas and find belonging. So if you're working, are you socializing? If you're locked into your business, are you building community? Right? Yeah, are you like engaging with people? Like I like to say my Discord is like a coffee shop, right? Like my Discord is a coffee shop and people come to socialize. You still have to be appropriate. You know, you can't go into a coffee shop and trauma dump. You can't come into my Discord and trauma dump as an example. But if you come to my Discord, right? Like there are rules, but it's meant to be a more social place. It's not meant to be work. I'm working, you're not working. I own the cafe, so I'm working, but you are not working. Right? So I don't expect you to come to my Discord and start talking about your business or sharing your business or start trying to like take my customers or something. That would be weird. Or I don't expect you to come do your work. You know, you can use, I have a space on my Discord actually called the Cozy Chat, and it's for exactly this. Like you can sit in the Cozy Chat and it's a silent space, no talking, and people have a chat, like you can chat with typing. And it's meant to be a solid like work study place. So I'm in there when I'm editing, or people are in there when they're studying. And it's just a nice way to say I'm somewhere without leaving my house, but somebody's holding me accountable because they can see that I'm there. So it's kind of like a nice virtual way of doing that. But, you know, there are ways to be appropriate is what I'm trying to say. But I think it takes a lot of effort. You know, it takes a lot of effort for us to be in community with one another, to explain the policy. See, interesting that both of the people who made the main TikToks didn't tell us why the policy exists. Why didn't the guy who went to go to the small business to prove this girl wrong tell us? And why didn't she tell us? Right? Isn't that weird? Okay, Chet says, how do I join the Discord? Well, I see you're already a member. So the YouTube members and the Discord members are different. There's YouTube members have different perks than Discord members. So Discord members, they're part of Patreon. You can join through Patreon. We're actually starting, let's see, we do events every Saturday. We're doing professionally taught yoga, 30-minute class, Saturday, January 24th. We're starting the deconstruction episode by episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And we're going to, philosophically examine the show episode by episode. So you can come and join us. 18 plus, no kids on the Discord, Chats, a side note, I hate how there is now a fancy gym called Third Space, hijacking the concept for corporate purpose. Well, and that's the other thing. Are third spaces places that don't cost money or do cost money? I think it's either. Because even if you have guys, libraries cost money. Like parks cost money. You know what I'm saying? BDSM dungeons were my third spaces. They cost money. I used to go to the dungeon almost every day after work or every weekend after work. They cost money. My bars that did board game nights, they cost money. Gamer shops, they cost money. Because you want to donate to the space. You can't, you have to donate through taxes. You donate through donations. You can't have a village you don't donate to. You can't have a village you don't participate in, right? That's why I believe in taxation, as long as it's fair, of course. But I believe in taxation because, you don't get to just take advantage of the world because you live here, right? So, of course, we want a village that we also put labor into, even if it's just making sure we pick up trash or make sure we clean up the space when we leave or making sure we don't turn it into our living room, right? Chess is discussing theory at the dungeon. Exactly. You know how it was. Actually, in all of my life, never have I had so many philosophical and political discussions than at a BDSM dungeon. Well, somebody is literally hanging from a ceiling or tied up or being spanked. Not literally during the scene, to be fair, or if during the scene in the social spaces, but some of the best philosophical political conversations I've ever had is with somebody completely naked or in leather in front of me. Totally. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Okay. So when we talk about these conversations, I think it is, it's community dependent. We're all going to have different relationships with these words and what they should look like. But I think what's important is that they shouldn't all look the same. They should be dependent on the culture and what people in the community want and desire for the space. And I think that's kind of the point, is instead of saying, oh my God, you're crazy for this or you're crazy for this, just say, oh, okay, the world doesn't work that way in all places. So thank you for letting me know. And now I know. But, it might not be for me, or maybe this space is for me because of this particular vibe. But I think it's this judgment that we start with that makes me want to pause and just remind people that cafes don't work the same universally. Every town has its own vibe. Every chain has its own vibe. Every business has an expectation. I am very much used to cafes being places where people work, but I can understand that a cafe must exist in which maybe that's not the vibe. Okay, note to self, right? I kind of wish, and this is sort of my wish, that if people go into this business again, they just remind people, hi, welcome to Hibiti. I'm so happy to have you here. Just a reminder, these are our policies if you want to read them over just in case, but otherwise, thank you for being here. Instead of assuming people will read the sign, because I also do think it's a little ableist to assume people would read the sign, right? We can't assume people even speak English and you wrote it in English. We can't even expect, why are you assuming people read the sign? Okay, what if they didn't wear their glasses that day and they literally couldn't even read the sign? They didn't even think about it. What if they're just they didn't notice it, right? So for him to be the sign is there, okay, and it's just there were so many other ways to avoid this circumstance, but I just didn't think people had a lot of care or consideration when thinking about why that sign might have been missed. But then it did feel like they were punching down on this girl who did a very normal and common thing in a lot of cultural bubbles, working at a cafe. That's really normal. And she spent $25 in 3 hours, more than enough. That's more than enough. That's almost $10 an hour just to sit at their table. What do you want from her? That's more than the federal minimum wage. What do you want from her? Do you know what I'm saying? Just I think if they confronted people who didn't see the sign in a rude way, that would be worse than letting someone stay for a few hours before gently letting them know the policy. I disagree. I think they should say it in the beginning because you're comfortable. It reminds me of that other cafe story. You remember the girl was taking a picture outside the cafe and she had just gone to Dunkin's and the store owner was like, oh my God, are you filming in front of my cafe? And then she went in to buy something and then she went to go sit down. And the woman's like, no outside food. You know, they say Gen Zers are socially inept, but I think it's just about everybody. Because at this point, I don't even get it. At this point, do we not know how to humanize people and see where they're coming from? Like, can you not, like, we all as a collective have to make the effort. Yes, both Black women, mind you. Yes, chat, both Black women, mind you. So, you know, we need to be very considerate and contemplate if there's some level of racism playing into here. And in case you guys didn't understand what I was giving you a look for earlier, when he assumed she lied about how much she spent, and he said nothing on this menu could have gotten you to $25 and didn't take into consideration she tipped, that's probably because he thinks Black people don't tip. Because what other reason was there when my first thought was she tipped, obviously, bro. That's why the cost came to 25. Him trying to disprove her as a liar by saying like she couldn't have spent that much. What would be the only logical reason she would then have spent that much? A tip. That's what I'm saying. Like, be good faith with people. Assume people are following a general custom of tipping because that's the custom. Okay? That's why I said that earlier. And now I have to feel like I have to explain it, you know? So yeah, I kind of feel like he was assuming, instead of being good faith and just assuming that she was following the expectation of the bubble, which is we typically tip in America, you know? So in America, in New York, yeah, that's what I assume she did. And look, I don't have confirmation on that, but she did prove she spent $25 there. And I'm going to assume that's why, which is why she said when she went to the other coffee shop, she tipped 20%, which is what I'm assuming, you know, see how I'm using deductive reasoning? What am I, Sherlock Holmes? Call me Sherlock Holmes, baby. You know what I mean? Damn. I don't know. Like, it's not even, you know, it's not that deep, bro. That's a joke. It is that deep.